Hey everyone, Rushlock here, and it has been a while with our next episode from Evaganda, Rixx Javix posting an article called Some Concerns. I wish I could share the work I am doing on the board game with you all, but that will come down the road once the game has been released and it is officially public. For now, just know that I am hard at work every day, having the time of my life, working on this incredible game. This reminds me so much of the time I spent working on card sets for Fleer and Marvel back in the 90s. Now, this stood out to me because years ago I found out that Rixx worked for Fleer or with Fleer and Marvel back in the 90s when I was a kid, collecting card games like Overpower, Fleer Ultra X-Men 94 as a collectible set. And on Twitter, years ago, we had crossed paths because of this. And like, wait a minute, this is Rixx from Eve. Wait, he used to work on things I loved as a kid. So when I saw this article and I saw this in the first paragraph, I can already imagine what he's talking about. Working every day with talented people and artists, designing cards with Iron Man, Hulk, and other heroes I grew up with. Rixx, you're going to get minus 10 points for not mentioning the X-Men, by the way. All right, making me do it. And now it's all about EVE Online. Every single day, it is amazing, so hang in there. We are getting closer. I was flying around low-sec yesterday and had some concerns. Not for the game itself, but for our pirate playstyle. Let me quickly review my day for you. I'm in a comet, by the way. I landed 20 kilometers from a caracal and he ran off. I slid into a jaguar and he ran off. I engaged a micro warp drive kestrel who was 40 kilometers from me, and his two buddies slid into us. I ran off. That's just silly. Another caracal ran from me in a supply site, even though he'd have NPC backup in any fight, which is also silly. Oh look, another caracal. Guess what? Yep, he also ran from me. You're probably sensing a pattern here. Now look, I know some of this is because it's me. I get that, and I live with it, and I own it every day. But what you are missing here is some context. Let me explain. Each of those systems had 30 to 50 players in them at the time. These weren't empty systems with some random dude ratting in a belt. These systems are packed. In one system, there were 37 people inside a large plex, not fighting each other, just running the plex together. This is increasingly the way things are. Again, system after system of empty plex and one stuffed plex in each system. Doesn't this sound very, very familiar, Null Bears? Doesn't this seem strange? My concern is that Havoc will only end up reinforcing this, that opportunities for solo and small gang pirates will continue to become more and more rare, that not only will faction warfare fleets continue to hunker down in a single plex, but that potential quote-unquote pirate NPC lovers will also be forced to do the same in order to compete. And those of us on the fringes will slowly and methodically pushed aside. That is concerning to me. And if you think I'm overreacting, then you aren't the CEO of a proud pirate corporation who is watching the effects of this on his people every single day. Because I'm seeing it. I'm hearing it. I'm hearing the frustration of 20 jumps without a fight, of players trying to generate content and being frustrated by the lack of response, of us having to increase the amount of gangs we fly just to survive, of players spreading out further and further in order to find content to enjoy. Anyway, I need to get back to work. I'm just expressing my own frustrations here. I'm concerned 24/7 about my corporation and my alliance. That's just my job. We'll see how things continue to develop. Onward and upward. So a little feedback, I guess, on the situation. What he describes is definitely happening. I've been back into faction warfare in this past week, and the last time I did faction warfare, probably about 4 or 5 months ago, I did a good probably 3 or 4 month stint with it, and that was the case. It was much more incentivized to sit in a group on a plex than to spread out and do as much as you could, in terms of like as many sites at one time. Now, a little bit of counterbalance to the arguments. Look at these caracals. These caracals are on supply depots. They are not there for PvP, which is very strange because we're in faction warfare, right? But the way those supply depots are designed as content beacons, they're deployed by CCP to incentivize people from opposite factions to go there, fight over the sites, and the winners will push that site whichever way it needs to be pushed, whether it needs to be defended or attacked or whatever. There's been an obvious shift in general, not just faction warfare, not just small gang pirate. This also stretches out or spreads out to nullsec as well, where people more often than not in EVE Online now don't quote-unquote fight unless it's quote-unquote worth it. So that caracal is not a tool for the job that Rixx is presenting. That caracal is not designed or set up or fit or whatever to fight neither Rixx nor a Comet. Is the Comet an intimidating ship versus the caracal in a equally experienced pilot matchup? Probably not. But again, the Caracal is not. The Caracal may not even have tackle fit. It'd be a useless module fit for the task it's doing. It's looking around to grab supply depots that are uncontested, because it's finding them in empty systems, or at least with lower activity systems. Now, Rixx is saying that this person was in a Caracal on a supply depot in a system with 30 to 50 people. That's surprising only in that Caracal would probably be more productive in another system. The scenario where the Caracal gets landed on and warps off, from my perspective, is totally expected. Like, I can't imagine anything else happening, especially with that many people in local. They're not going to go park on that site defensively and then just go AFK. Like, that wouldn't make any sense either, right? Which makes it a very strange interaction that Rixx describes, where he lands on a Caracal that's defending a site, and the NPCs would back him up, and then he's still warped off. Like, what was that Caracal waiting for? What was that Caracal? What was the matchup, right? What was the engagement where the Caracal is like, oh, this is the engagement profile? Like, it's Rixx and a Comet, right? You've got your full complement of NPCs helping you out. You're in a cruiser versus a frig. Like, that part, I guess, jumps out to me, Rixx, is like, that seems like a really weird one. Though it seems more strange to me that the person was sitting there in the first place with 30, 50 people in local. I guess as a pirate, you may or may not know at a glance at a local the distribution in system of which faction is which side and the other. You may have that information. I don't know. I just imagine as a third party, you would see just a wall of gray. And so if there are 30 to 50 people in local, there might be a presumption that it's 20 versus 10 or 30 versus 20 or whatever. I don't know. I don't have that context, I guess. But I do agree that the faction warfare sites, while intended to generate conflict, effectively, in my experience, do not. 37 nerds sitting on a large plex. You know, what is that about? Like, well, it's a large plex, so it has a large strategic value for pushing the system one way or the other, right? So the people piling into it are quote unquote doing the correct thing by securing the objective. Okay, so from a player perspective, being what's the word? Being objective, right? They are doing the correct thing. They are securing the objective in a way that is going to make sure that the time invested on the stupid Plex timer, I'm a little biased there, I can't stand Plex timers. Watching a clock tick to me is boring as all F. They're making sure that the time invested secures the site. You know, unless the opposing faction forms up to push them off in force, it isn't going to happen, right? Now, in that scenario, there's also no entitlement, and Rixx isn't saying that there is, but there's no entitlement to a solo pirate player to go slide into a large and find content. It's like, oh crap, there's 37 people here. This is, CCPY. Like, that's not a thing. That's not an argument to be had. What could be done about it? Let's talk about, like, potential solutions. What do we have? That's something I would like to see more of, I guess. And Rixx is limited on time, so you might not be able to get into the wish list of, I wish we could do this, I wish we could do that, or what ifs. That what ifs are more I'm more comfortable, because I don't claim that my ideas aren't shit. Like, I don't have enough. Sorry, I've had the flu. I've been still coughing lately. But I wonder, what are some solutions that could be considered? What if plexes were locked at one player? Well, how would it read that, right? We've seen the tech in the game before that will only allow a certain number of people into the site. And we can't lock plexes rated as ones to 2 people, because then 2 people of the same faction will just sit on the site and split the reward, and then hostiles wouldn't have the option of engaging. Can CCP develop the tech to have a gate where it currently reads number of people? Can the gates read alignment of people? And even if it can, would it matter if somebody can just spin up a second Omega account and then I have one Mimitar character and one Amarian character. My Mimitar character is the actual active character I'm using, but my Amarian alts being on the site then would allow me to lock out other actual truly hostile Amarians. Could maybe neutrals ignore that mechanic? I think Rixx had posted in a previous article that we'd covered a variety of, like, maybe different rules for pirates. So what if a Plex rated for 5 people has 5 Minotaurs sitting on it, up to 5 Amarians can enter that site, and then any number of neutral third parties can enter, preventing anyone from jamming sites to prevent conflict. I think maybe the 5 rated plexes might work that way with the hard cap at 5 for each faction, but I don't think that would work very well for the ones because somebody could just abuse that. And then it would not only would you be welcoming that third party to come disrupt that, but you'd also the system would become dependent upon it. And maybe that's the extreme push that would work. I don't think so at a glance, but maybe that turd of an idea could be polished into something useful. So I'll pass that turd back to Rixx and see what he thinks about it, and maybe he'll chew on it a bit and come up with something. But it's been a while, guys, since we did a recording. I'll try to get back and have it on YouTube here. Hurricane came through, did a lot of damage. There was no internet for weeks on end. We're just now getting back up and running, and then I had the flu last week, so I lost the voice. And yeah, we'll get back into it, though. I'll be moving into a new work-from-home location that I am super excited about sometime in the next month-ish, and then we should see more regular updates here on YouTube. But thank you guys for watching. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you all in the next one.